Welcome back to the Draft FC podcast, the podcast website and YouTube channel dedicated to all things official Draft FPL. My name is Mitch, and for those on the video, you will see that I am joined once again by my esteemed Draft FC colleague, Draft FC Kiran. Good morning, Kiran.
Good morning, Mitch. Pleasure to be back on the podcast. This time with you, not replacing you. So I think the fans will be happy with that.
Yeah, do you know what? I totally forgotten that until right then that you took over for a few weeks, because that phase of life, as you are experiencing, was a bit of a blur. Lots of you sent me lots of nice messages when that news came out, and I think it's only right that you should give some love to Draft FC Kiran in the comments too, because he has also just become a father for the first time. So yeah,
Thanks, Mitch. We promise we're not doing this on purpose, that we're all timing our children just at the exact same time that the season's starting. We are still all here for you. Just don't worry.
Yeah, and we're sorry. It's actually the main reason why Draft FPL have delayed the launch of the game. They found out that we both needed a couple of extra weeks to interact together.
Oh dear, it's beyond a joke. I think like everyone that's going to be listening is listening to this because they'd rather actually be on the like tinkering their watch list while listening to this at the same time. But instead, they're just purely listening to us because they just won't launch this damn game. Maybe, hopefully, by the time you are listening to this, it has launched.
Yeah.
But this is we're recording this on Thursday morning on the 31st of July, and it's been a week and 4 days since the main game launched. Is that correct, Mitch?
Yeah, it was last Monday, and we also had FPL Challenge launch yesterday. Lots of people I know have been commenting, messaging, asking us if we've got some sort of inside track on when the game is going to launch. We do not, unfortunately, have any leverage or inside track into what's going on over there in FPL. But through our own angry emails, and I know lots of you out there have also been contacted in the background, we are reliably informed it will be there soon. So for those of you who are concerned it's not going to launch, I don't think that is the case. Also, some conspiracy theorists out there suggesting that it means there's going to be a whole host of new features. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of been my reaction when I've heard that. I mean, don't get me wrong, if they bust out a load of changes out of nowhere, we'll be the first to congratulate them, albeit still being a bit annoying. I mean, if you think about it, they launched the game and then they've got all season to tinker with it, so it seems like whatever they've tried to do or are doing, they're trying to squeeze it into the off season. So yeah, don't get me wrong, we would love to see some changes, but I do not think that is the case.
Yeah, this off season's been like such a frustration, because it's like they gave us something, but then they've just like they gave us something with a new scoring. You looked at the FPL app and you saw that a draft was there, and you're thinking, oh, maybe it's going to be integrated into my app now, and then they just take it all away by not actually launching the game. So let's hope, fingers crossed, it is this week. I'm not holding out hope for any new features. I think the point scoring is enough. But yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we actually here for today? I know many of you would have first been introduced to our double act when we were going through some of the team reviews. It was sort of midway last season, wasn't it? Kind of November time,
Yeah.
off the top of my head. So
yeah.
We'd had a bit of the season already to kind of get our teeth into at that point. At this point, obviously, we are well in sort of preview territory, but the aim is to pretty much do a whistle-stop tour of all 20 teams. So inevitably, that is not going to all fall into this one episode. So this will get broken up into a few and see what we think, and just kind of have, let's say, a real check over of all the squads, so that come draft day, you can't feign ignorance that you haven't at least heard of everyone that's kind of out there or on the fringes of being out there at the moment. So the first sort of collection we've broken this into today for episode 1, just going alphabetically, is Arsenal, Aston Villa, Bournemouth and Brentford. For this episode, neither Kiran and I have any skin in the game. So obviously, Draft FC Kiran is a Chelsea fan. I am a Spurs fan. Are you repping the colours there? I can't quite see what you got on.
The colours, yes, but I'm wearing a 1998 Zidane t-shirt.
Of course you are. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I assumed you'd be coming in yours, so I came in mine. But...
Oh, maybe for future episodes. There are plenty of Chelsea shirts floating around here. Small size for the little baby one, and also larger sizes for me.
Okay. Anything you want to say before we jump into the teams?
Now let's get into it.
So I will also say right at the top, I mean, for those who are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to now see the Arsenal team, the Arsenal squad on screen. For those listening to the audio, I was debating actually whether or not this would even go out on the pod. I think there will be more than enough for it to be just as worthwhile as an audio pod. However, I would strongly encourage you, if you can, to watch this on YouTube rather than just listen to it. But I understand some of you have it in your ears when you're on your way to work or walking the dog or whatever. So we'll try and bear you in mind. But part of the way we've got this set up today is we can get our mouse into the tactics board a little bit and move players around and try and be clever as much as we can. So which obviously will kind of go over your heads a bit if you're just listening. But yeah, so Arsenal, where do you want to start, Kieran?
Let's start with the defence. Good place to start. Most clean sheets last season, potentially even the season before. Arsenal have had a solid defence for years now at this point. But the interesting players for me are the three right in the centre. You've got Raya, Saliba, and Gabriel, who play basically every game. And I don't see that changing. They've got Kivior and Mosquera as backups, but I see them as like quite a significant drop in quality. Whereas like I do envisage that Timber and Lewis Skelly are going to be rotated a fair bit more, with Calafiori and Ben White obviously really good backups, and can do slightly different things as well, which I think Arteta will start to do more of next season, which is like use different players for different opposition. So yeah, if you're looking to tap into the Arsenal clean sheets, usually you look at fullbacks because they've got the potential of assist points, but obviously there's a change in point structure this season as well that Mitch has already discussed, which allows centre backs to pick up more points. But I think you should be really focusing in on Saliba and Gabriel. Raya obviously are going to leave later down the line for goalkeepers anyway, but that's one of the first keepers that will be picked up in your leagues. Any thoughts, Mitch?
Yeah, I think just defense. I mean, Arsenal were on paper the best defence last season. If you look at the expected goals against, they were number one. So expected to concede less than 40, which was not far off Liverpool, who was sort of 42. But then there's quite a jump to the next best team, which interestingly was Fulham. But yeah, definitely I think remain the best defence in the league. And like you said, those core ones in the middle are pretty sure and steady. I agree. I think there is going to be a bit more rotation in the fullback areas. I would imagine if you're Arsenal, if you're Arteta and you were doing a bit of a review this summer, it felt like there was a bit too much maybe put on Lewis Skelly's shoulders. Now I know he was obviously put in there needs must due to injuries, but even beyond that, once he'd kind of shown a bit of form, I felt like he could have been rotated a little bit better. But as I said, I'm aware that it was a bit of a needs must. But we saw a lot of Timber too. When I felt like on the right side, when I felt like White could have started coming back in, Timber could have had some left back minutes and given them all a bit of a break. But we know Arteta does like a fairly consistent starting 11. The only thing I'd mention quickly on the defenders, I mean, their value I think is not going to be too controversial when people are doing their draft rankings. However, they are definitely not up there when it comes to benefactors of the new Siebert or Seabit defensive points, which is because, you know, Arsenal are a very high possession team. They're very good at defending, but obviously they are not constantly all hands to the pump clearing the box for 90 minutes. So as a result, you know, they just they don't pick up a lot. I mean, Saliba last season would have had an extra 12 points. So that means there would have been 6 matches last season that he'd have got that 2-point bonus, which is obviously miles off some of the mid and lower table defenders. Gabriel just 4, but obviously he missed fairly big chunks of the season with injury. But if you extrapolated that, neither of them really are picking up a lot. I mean, the main benefactor moving us into midfield, or the main 2 benefactors were Declan Rice and Thomas Partey. Now, obviously, Partey is gone. We've got Zubimendi likely to play a lot of minutes in there now, but kind of makes sense that they're going to be the 2 busybodies in there. But I think with Zubimendi in there, be interesting to see where Rice falls on draft day, because I'm quite high on Rice again this year. What do you think?
I think it depends on where exactly he's going to be playing. I think the way that I've got this formation set up, he's very much playing in like one of the forward roles, that left centre mid, while Odegaard's over to the side. Whether Arteta is a bit uncomfortable with Zubimendi doing this like almost Partey role on his own, especially from the beginning, might mean that Rice is sitting a bit deeper to start the season, which might impact especially his attacking returns, because we know that he can pop up with a goal. That said, Rice does love scoring long range goals, which obviously is more of an opportunity for him while he's sitting back here. But it's just something I've got in my mind, that he might just be sitting Rice a little bit deeper just to make sure that Zubimendi isn't just overrun. Though we know that Arteta also does like tucking in Lewis Skelly and others into this space as well, and Timber. Like at times he expects Saliba and Gabriel to like marshal the whole back line on their own and end up with some formation, something like this. So maybe Zubimendi will have protection. I think Rice, that's my only concern about Rice at the moment, where exactly he slots in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll see it, just because of how sort of conservative Arteta tends to set up. But you could also, given that they've now signed a very marquee out-and-out number 9, is there a role for this gent to get involved in this kind of space? Kai Havertz, if you're going really, if you're sitting against a real low block team, where you're literally just containing the ball within the opposition penalty area, I don't see why you couldn't do something like that. Again, with the fullbacks kind of tucking in too.
While I agree, this is all well and good in theory. What I think Arteta's more likely to do, because he likes his giants, he likes his he likes his defensive players. I think what is more likely to happen is that Martinelli will in fact get dropped, and Havertz will play on a sort of like left wing in the defensive shape. I think he'll more likely play Calafiori at left back and expect him to bomb on and provide some width on the left hand side, and it'll end up something like this, where he still has some cover with Zubimendi. Someone's on the left hand side. I just don't see Arteta dropping Zubimendi and going that attacking. That's just not. It just doesn't feel like his forte.
And then the other name, because obviously I was kind of intrigued when you set it up. Now, as I said at the beginning, neither of us are Arsenal fans, but you put Martinelli in there. But you can definitely give us an opinion on this gent, Madueke. Where do you see him slotting in here?
You know what? Like I've obviously been watching a lot of Madueke, but also a lot of videos on this as well. Everyone keeps talking about Madueke as someone who can play on the right and someone who can play on the left. The left thing only appeared maybe in the last like 8 games of the season. He has never been comfortable on the left, and arguably wasn't comfortable on the left in those games either. He perhaps was better than what Pedro Neto was doing towards the end of the season on that side. But his natural instinct is to cut inside, and he just keeps cutting inside, but then he's not onto his right foot, and that's not something he's particularly comfortable with at distance. So I just don't see him playing on the left that much. Perhaps Arteta has seen something that he's really happy with. I just see Madueke currently as Saka cover, and Saka to maybe play rather than the 35 and 37 starts he did the few seasons before last. Obviously, he was injured last season. I see him maybe Saka starting about 30 games and Madueke covering the rest of those Premier League games. I see him more of an asset on the right-hand side of their attack, not really on their left.
Yeah, I guess the noise is because Martinelli he's really sort of plateaued, hasn't he? He hasn't continued that trajectory that we thought we'd see from a couple of years ago. But I'm inclined to agree with you. I just think, if Arsenal have been a way to, Madrid on a Wednesday night, and they've got Burnley at home on Saturday 3 p.m. You could start Madueke that game, couldn't you? And give Saka an afternoon
Absolutely.
off, and not really lose anything, considering the way the game state is going to go. Yeah, and obviously Saka's coming off a big injury, so they are going to have to protect him. But not only that, he is generally at high risk of getting another injury, unfortunately, because say he's sort of in the established top 5. Whenever anyone's talking about their draft rankings at the moment, everyone's talking about that kind of cliff edge after the top 5 picks, and Saka is getting banded around very happily in that top 5, but it's definitely an injury risk there, and also a bit of a rotation risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I was mentioned, so I actually feel, especially because Arsenal were linked with Eze as well, I think more that left wing spot will be an attacking fielder that perhaps tucks in while a fullback provides sort of like the width on that side. So Havertz tucking in, that sort of thing. How do you feel about Gyökeres? My original, maybe like a few weeks ago, I just thought he loves Havertz so much that he's still going to play him quite a lot up front. But I think it's softened quite a lot given how big they've gone with some of the sort of like conversations around it, the videos around it, that sort of thing. So do you see him as the starting striker, and how many games do you think he starts next season in the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of talked about Gyökeres on the episode before last when I was talking about the marquee signing. So yeah, I'm a fan. I think it's just such a no-brainer, good move. It's just good. I think it's really, and again, we're all just speculating now. I think Arteta, if he wants to actually try to win the league, there has to be a bit more tilt towards the attacking side. There needs to be a little bit more risk involved. Putting Havertz as a false 9 essentially is as low risk a position on the pitch that any team could wish for. It's he's a safe pair of hands, but he's never really going to threaten to get you 15, 20 goals a season, in my opinion, from that position in that team. So yeah, I think if he doesn't go with Gyökeres and the results start to get a bit iffy, it's going to just so quickly that the mood is going to turn so fast. So I kind of think he's almost forced to play him. He's almost forced to give him minutes from the off. So yeah, I see him starting more games than Havertz this season in the Premier League, at least. I think you could definitely argue a case for Havertz becoming like a bit more of a number 9 in the Champions League, but yeah, it's it really, the answer to this exists in Arteta's brain, essentially.
Yeah, fair enough. Any other final thoughts for Arsenal?
Not probably not massively. I think Odegaard's the only other one we've kind of totally skirted around. I think he's a bit of a draft conundrum, but I'm leaning towards valuing him based off of last season's performance, which is that he is not a first round pick anymore. If you want to take him in the second round, I think that's absolutely fine, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him drop in, right down to sort of around pick 20, even beyond in some leagues, and that wouldn't stand out to me as being a totally out of the ordinary pick.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think you're getting a lot of value if you're picking up that late. I think there's a couple of reasons why I think his score wasn't so great last season. One was that he was rushed back from injury far too quickly, which I think Arteta should be better at next season. Now that he has players like Nwaneri that can deputise, and also he didn't end up starting very many games either. So last season 116 points. The season before 186 and 212. So that's a quite high upside to pick up in the second round. So I would still think of him as a solid second round, high upside pick.
Yeah, I think, well, as you'll see in a later video when I go through my top 20 picks, I think the trouble is everybody now is cottoning on to the lack of forwards, and so the second round, is really jam-packed with, I mean, ultimately some fairly bog standard Premier League forwards. And so if you happen to get one of the high upside midfielders with your first pick, you almost certainly need a forward then in round 2. So straight away that kind of gets rid of someone like Odegaard. And yeah, even if you did pick up a forward, I think lots of people will be more than happy to go forward in rounds 1 or 2, depending on who falls there as well. So I think he could be, say, just one of the casualties just from that point of view. But yeah, it's Arsenal. I think all of these guys are going to have some decent draft day capital. But should we move on to Aston Villa then?
Yep, let's do it. I've also I don't know if you've checked my want to watch things that I've put in, so I don't know if you actually agree with some of the ones, but I thought maybe we could start there. Starman, I put Ollie Watkins, and want to watch Marlon. What are your thoughts on those off the top?
Yeah, it was a bit. I think I probably expected to see a little bit more of Marlon last season. I know there were a couple of bodies there on loan who are no longer there, so it was, there was competition for places. I know you've put a little flag on Bailey there. I haven't actually looked into it. Are there rumours that he could leave?
Yeah, there's quite significant rumours for him to go to the Turkish league, and also so basically Villa's PSR situation is not great either, and to the point where like Martinez was waving goodbye to the fans and crying at the end of last season because it was kind of thought that he might be the one that is moved on. We've heard the rumours about Watkins as well, although maybe some of them have softened a little bit. And then Bailey is the other one that is thought like these are the high value players we might get good money for.
Well, to be honest, if I was Aston Villa, Bailey would be one of the first names I'd happily be looking to move on. Just because there is still a bit of value in him, but I don't think it really breaks that team or
no,
I don't think it affects where they land at the end by game week 38. I don't think their position in the league table is any different based on whether Bailey is in that squad or not.
Yeah, he had a really good season 4 last, where basically he was like fighting for a spot with Diaby. And yeah, he got 148 points, but last season 47 points is pretty bad for an attacking player like him. So yeah, that is the player. If anyone they should move on. Like Martinez, they should try and keep a hold of. As much of he is a character and eccentric, but he is a really good goalkeeper that they would find it hard to replace.
For sure, he's just a big presence. I mean, the defence there is reasonably stable. I don't think that we're going to see a huge amount of change there. There's still a bit of a tussle between Digne and Maatsen, but I think for now I would just be assuming that Digne is number one based on what we saw over and over again last season, despite pre-season last year me being quite high on Maatsen. But yeah,
the only thing I'd say about Digne is that yes, he is the one that is currently favoured, but it's more Emery doesn't want Digne. Like he's made that very clear from the signing of Moreno and then Maatsen. But Digne just keeps playing so well that he has to keep playing him. As soon as I think there's like a somewhat of a dip in form, I think Maatsen could be the starting one in the Premier League. So yeah, I think that I do watch that space. While I do agree with you, the rest of that back four is pretty settled.
And again, we know what we're getting from those central midfield players. You've put Ollie Watkins as the star man, which yeah, again, I think has to be. His output has been rock steady for the last sort of 3 years now, even 4 years, 5 years in the Premier League. So he's a real safe first rounder. Like you're more than happy, I think, to come away in round 1 with Ollie Watkins. And those who are sort of saying there's a cliff edge after pick 5, I would argue that Ollie Watkins is part of that bridge towards the latter part of. I'd say as well, whenever I'm talking about draft in my mind, I usually have a concept of a 10-team league in my head. So I know lots of you play 8-team leagues. So pick 6 is like a late first round pick, but for me, pick 6 is like a mid. I consider it a mid first round pick. But yeah, Watkins is definitely a bridge. I mean, if he went, the rumor is Man United potentially seemed to be the.
It was a few days ago, but it seems to have changed, and I think that's why picking him up, you should still be pretty happy because sounds like Man United are going for Sesko instead, and what that means Watkins either staying at Aston Villa, which is obviously a team he's settled in and works for him with a great manager, or like I think Newcastle could be interested if if Newcastle lose Isak, miss out on Etitike, miss out on Sesko. There's not that many strikers left that can really fill that space. And Nicholas Jackson's been touted, but Chelsea's asking price is really high. So Watkins could be one that I think that they could look at, and either ending up in either Aston Villa or Newcastle is not it's not the worst in the world for a player like him.
Yeah, basically we're waiting for the striker merry-go-round to kind of ignite.
Start happening.
Yeah, just see. I mean, personally, if I were in Newcastle, because we're looking at, I don't know what the kind of fees were banded around for Ollie Watkins. I'm guessing, like everyone, that kind of £60 million.
You got, like I can I like I don't want to do too much Man United bashing. This club is so. Sorry for swearing. Bleep it afterwards, Mitch. They don't know what they're doing. They're like Arsenal bid 60 million, I think, in January for Watkins, and it was rejected. And the rumor coming around recently was like Man United think a deal could be done for Watkins for 40 to 45 million. And it's like, where are you plucking this number from? Like you're in dreamland. Like what? I don't understand what they're thinking. So yeah, I think that's what's put them off, because it's like a player that's 29 and
he'll be 30 come Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I were Newcastle, I mean, you mentioned it there, and again, we're getting way off subject now because we're meant to be talking about Aston Villa. But depending on where the chips fall, I'd be trying to get Jackson personally.
Not only should Newcastle be going for him, but I think if Watkins moves on, I think Villa are going to be going for Jackson as well. And as much as there's a lot of hate around Nicholas Jackson, especially for some no. I think it's mostly what's remembered is those particular chances he misses, but they're not remembered as the consistency in which he arrives in the right place, right time a lot. But Emery coached Jackson and gave him his first team debut at Villarreal, so is another link that if Watkins moves on, I think Jackson could be someone that Villa look to, because I don't think Redmond is ready-made for the Premier League.
No, exactly. I mean, it just they're starting to look quite thin, aren't they? They need another. I mean, if Bailey leaves, assuming Watkins stays, they still need another couple of bodies, really, in attack, particularly with rotating in Europe.
Yeah, and for example, I put Illing Jr. there, the lad they signed from Juventus last season and then loaned him to Bologna and Middlesbrough. I'm not even sure that Emery fancies him. I've just had to put him there because that's a body that they must need if Bailey's off. But that is a player that might end up playing quite a lot, given that scenario, and rotating with Marlon, or might get loaned out again. So yeah, another potential to watch in a very attacking side.
The other star man you could have easily put in there is Morgan Rogers, who is pretty much one of the first names on the team sheet now. And I think the intriguing thing, if you pick him up on draft day, is the potential that he's still on the ascendancy in terms of how many goal contributions, how many points he can rack up. I mean, he made 37 league appearances last year, 8 goals, 10 assists, official assists, not FPL ones. So with a sort of non-penalty expecting goal involvement just under 0.5, so he's basically expected to get a return 1 in 2 games. But that's, let's say he's so young, and we've seen already an upward trajectory from the minutes he got the season before last. So even a minuscule improvement on last season, and he is a great pick. And again, he's another one of those midfielders that, because of the surge to get forwards in rounds 1 and 2, I think is going to often be trickling into round 3 potentially, which again could be amazing value. Looking back at this in a year's time, he could be, easily one of your. Well, he's someone that could be knocking on the door of the 200 point club, which is always a very safe foundation player to have in any team.
Yeah, agreed. And like you look at his stats from last season, and he's started 37 games. And you could think maybe that's maybe it's hard to replicate that every season. But if you look at the rest of the Villa side, there's not really anyone that can really replace him in that particular role he does. Potentially Ramsey, but that seems like a fair drop in quality. So I think Rodgers is a lock in to start almost every game. So again, an opportunity to keep rising, like you said.
The only thing we haven't had a quick look at actually was the new points factoring in, and just, do you know off the top of your head who was the best? Who do you reckon got the most of the added points from this Villa team last season? Had they been applied last season?
Let's make a guess. Tielemans?
Yeah, Tielemans. So he would have got an
There we go.
extra 18 points. So that would have taken his tally from 121 to 139. So, as I say, there's so many players now that are in that bracket where their sort of season projection is going to be around the 150 mark. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's the sort of player that could end up sticking around in draft teams rather than being a bit more of a in and out waiver pickup. But then again, when there are so many guys in that bracket, perhaps you don't need to be quite so attached to them, knowing that in any given week you're probably going to be able to pick up a central midfielder with a chance of clean sheet points, with a chance of an assist, and also a chance of 2 CBERT points. They're sort of
yeah. You just have to see how it falls in your league, especially given the size of it, and just see how many points there are around. Because maybe you can do that. You can definitely do that in your 8-team league. Maybe it's still going to be harder in your 12-team league.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to. In fact, actually, one thing we haven't done, and we're 2 teams in, all of us gave our final league table predictions. We should
Indeed.
We should say, so for Arsenal fan, Draft FC Taz had them to finish 3rd. I believe I had them to finish 4th, classic, and you had them to finish 2nd.
Second, yes.
So actually,
I think that addition of Gyökeres is the reason why I ended up going. Like they have strengthened. While my original thinking is Osman might drop a little bit. Last season wasn't great for them, but I think they've made some good additions, and I think that should freshen up the squad quite a lot.
And then Villa, you had 6th, I had 7th, and Draft FC Taz had 9th. So we're kind of, again, we're sort of converging.
Yeah.
There's on the edge of those Europa spots, I guess, is where we're. But that could all change depending on how the squad looks in a few weeks' time. On to Bournemouth. Now, that's kind of what made me think about it, because so Bournemouth had, I guess, in a sort of subjective, qualitative manner, had what everyone would say is a good season last year.
Yeah.
However, on your table, 6, 8, 10, 12, you've got them to come 13th this season. I've got them to come 12th, and Taz has got them to come 11th. So we are not expecting them to, I guess, build on that. Why is that?
Yeah, there is an obvious answer, and I think their attack hasn't particularly changed, and they've still got some great attackers that we'll discuss in a second. But the defensive line, loss of Kerkez, Howson, and those might, because it hasn't happened yet, might not have been aware, but Zaban Yi is also of interest to PSG. So losing those 3, they've signed Truffert to play left back, but they don't have a centre back replacement for either Howson or Zaban Yi yet. So they need to sign someone else, and they might lose more. That said, a lot of last season, Bournemouth were a makeshift team and basically put teams that were saying, "Oh, we've got loads of injuries," like United, a different point, Chelsea, Spurs, basically. So we've got too many injuries. That's why we're bad. They put them to shame because they basically had 13 or 14 fit players, for a stretch of the season, playing Cook at right back for different games, and they were really good. They still fit into the system. It worked really well. Won games. So potentially we've got it. We've undersold it a little bit because on paper they've lost a lot of defensive assets. But that said, I've still gone for one to watch Petrovic, who they've signed from Chelsea. So while they haven't strengthened their back line of defence with a goalkeeper, Petrovic is better than Kepa. Perhaps he doesn't have the passing range of Kepa, but Petrovic was the player of the season for Strasbourg, where he was on loan last season. and he's shown himself to be a good shot stopper in the sort of 18 months he's played football, either at Strasbourg or Chelsea. So that is one good addition they've made to the team.
Yeah, and he was one of the players I highlighted in the previous pod, looking at some more hidden gem transfer picks. So yeah, it swings and roundabouts from the goalkeeper point of view because, like you said, it's going to get some shots at him potentially. And again, Bournemouth could take some of this cash and make one or two big defensive signings, and we're a lot calmer. But right now, as it stands, there's just such a split there. I mean, even if we assume Zabani goes, the stable spot is right back, which is arguably their weakest position on the pitch anyway. So, Araujo and Smith. I mean, Smith is like he's not, and Araujo hasn't really shown a huge amount with the minutes he got, hence why he was quickly benched. So it's a massive change. Senesi's solid, but he's not going to be able to hold that together on his own. There's potential for Dango to play a bit of left back as well.
For sure.
I don't love that personally because I love having Dango as as an attacking asset in all of my draft teams. If I have 6 draft teams on the go, I've got 6 Dangos. So that's pretty much how my season went last year, and I'm happy to do that again. And obviously Evan Nilsson missed some chunks of last season. The interesting thing, and I touched on it, I think in the marquee signing pod, talking about players who regularly have outperformed their XG by more than 3, and how there's just like a very select group of players that have managed to do that more than once. Son, Bowen, Foden, Harry Kane when he was, these kind of players. Last season, and I think I remember mentioning this on one of the gaming preview pods, I think, Bournemouth had 4 individual players who all underperformed their XG by more than 3. So Semenyo was expected another 3.5 goals. Evan Nilsson expected another 4 goals. Dango expected another 4 goals, and Tavernier expected another 3 goals. So, obviously they were one of the biggest discrepancies in terms of where their expected points tally was meant to put them in the league table and where they actually finished in the league, and it's almost single-handedly because they weren't putting away enough chances. Now, there is no way, I say there's no way, there's a minuscule possibility that is down to them being crap players. And more likely that that's just a bit of a statistical anomaly that they've happened to have 4 players have that kind of a season all at the same time. And if you look at all of those players individually, in terms of like previous seasons, they've always been sort of there or thereabouts in their, finishing ability. These aren't sort of serial chance missers. So if you assume a similar attacking unit, then the attack is exciting. So there could be a lot more goals there. It's just, it's just how many they can stop going in the other end, really.
Agree with you there, and sorry to say this about your favourite player, but given that they have a decent attacking few players, so you think in terms of starter quality, you've got Kluivert, Semenyo, Tavernier, and Sinisterra. Probably Billing, he doesn't really fancy, but I put him there as well. And given that, I can see Dango just playing more games at left back, just because it's harder for him to get a game in the front line. That said, when he is there, he performs really, really, really well. But yeah, I think that's a reason why Dango might play more games further back, which might not be of interest to you as a manager.
Yeah, he falls into that utility player bracket a little bit, which can then be a detriment. But yeah, I really. Well, I rate him. Also, Billing had a decent little cameo loan spell at was it Napoli? I think he went to, didn't he? I remember seeing one highlight of a goal he smashed in from the edge of the box. He's not a player I've historically rated, to be perfectly honest. But I think as a backup to Kluivert, he's fine.
Yeah. And then in terms of the new points, do you want to do the guessing this time? Outside of Dean Howson, who got the most? Who's the player that got the most in the new format?
It's either going to be Zabani or probably Christie or Cook. I would guess.
Yep, great thoughts there. So Howson got 38, Cook with 30, Zabani with 28, Christie with 26, Adams with 22. So basically, like their team is set up for this basically. And the reason you got three central midfielders is because Cook was playing right back for a time as well. But it just shows the difference. That spine of the team is doing a lot of work to get new points, because there's a drop after that. It's 8 points for Senesi after that.
Sure. And obviously, he played like a handful of games, I would imagine. I don't really remember him playing very much at all. So
Exactly.
okay, let's move on. The last team we're going to talk about in this episode, and another team, I guess, that has been picked apart is Brentford. Now, Draft FC Taz had Brentford to finish 15th this season. I had Brentford to finish 18th.
Yeah.
Relegated. And
minus 17th.
Yeah, so you've got them just sneaking in, surviving by the skin of their teeth. But again, this is another team whereby the squad that is there on paper right now is not going to be the squad that is there on paper in a month's time when the transfer window shuts. But obviously, just for those who've been living under a rock, they've lost Thomas Frank, they've lost most of the backroom staff that he's sort of taken with him. They've lost Brian Mbumo, they've lost Norgard, and they're almost certainly, by the looks of it, going to lose Visser as well. So, and the main addition so far has been Jordan Henderson.
There is one more who I think would question whether he would still go there if he knew all the stuff that was going to happen. Because I think it was still up in the air whether Thomas Frank was going to go or not. But yeah, Kelleher, it seemed like such a good move for him, and suddenly it seems like you're playing in a relegation battling side who have lost so much, as you just mentioned. And if they lose Visser, there is a lot of pressure on Thiago, who was injured for half the season and didn't really then look that great, to be the main man unless they sign someone else. Yeah, it's gonna be tough for Brentford. But the other thing that you're gonna have to factor in is that Brentford will pick up someone from League One, a sort of Moneyball striker signing that you'll have to start doing some assessments on in about 3 weeks' time. So just bear that in mind as well.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't put an at-risk flag, but there's also been a little bit of chatter with Damsgaard as well being linked to other clubs. It's just, I think his underlying numbers last year were pretty solid, and I think he's probably in a price bracket that a lot of clubs would be interested in. But it's a shame, like particularly for one of my other mates, Kevin Sharder. I feel like one more season in a settled, with that same front three could have just really given him the platform, whereas now he's suddenly got to be like one of the main guys. Like he's going to start every game essentially. And then, players like Carvalho, who for whatever reason wasn't quite fancied by Frank. He played less than 400 minutes last season, and off the top of my head, I don't believe he was injured throughout that. He was just not fancied. So he's going to have to really step up and be because they spent decent money on Carvalho. Again, yeah. Off the top of my head, maybe 25-30 million pounds for him.
That's in my head as well, yeah.
So he's going to have to, which for Brentford is a lot of money, to be fair. It's not to like disrespect them, but that is a big signing for Brentford. So he's going to have to really set up. Defensively, though, this is kind of the complete opposite to Bournemouth. Bournemouth have had their defence ripped out and have got a stable attack. Brentford essentially having their attack ripped out and have got a very stable defence, which you could argue has got stronger with the addition of Kelleher there. And Collins is obviously going to be, I think he's definitely going to be going on draft boards because he was a big C-bit or C-Bert.
Yeah.
He got an extra 32 points last season, which took his tally up to 159. So that is a very, very solid output. And considering, again, off the top of my head, I don't have the number in front of me. I don't believe Brentford were keeping clean sheets every week. So, they were defensively fairly average. So I would expect him to continue to pick up those additional points because he's generally the one getting his head on things and getting it away.
It's also he's getting his head on things and scoring and assisting goals. So he got 2 goals and 7 assists last season, which is pretty mad for a centre back.
Yeah, I mean, I would say expecting him to get anywhere near 7 assists this season is probably low, particularly when we have no idea who he's even going to be assisting.
Yes. Yeah, to be honest, a lot of those assists were like boots over the top to someone like Mbumo. So yes, it's definitely going to be more challenging for him. I will.
Right now,
Yeah, go on.
Shada's still got. He'll still go on draft day. I mean, you can't be banging in Premier League hat tricks and getting the tally he got, and be totally off the board just because Mbumo and potentially Vissa go. And it said
No, I think
Thiago's going to be a high pick purely because he's going to be the starting number 9.
Yeah, agree with you on both those. So I think like Shada, you could almost even say that it could go both ways. It could be very challenging for him, but also he could thrive in a like I am the main man sort of situation. So let's see how that works for him. And I think I would draft him in my team. I'd be happy to draft him in the later rounds because of that. And Kelleher, I think, is an upgrade on Flecken. So while they are going to have it is going to be more challenging for them. They've lost Norgard, who was patrolling that midfield. But Kelleher is an upgrade, and potentially more clean sheets might come their way because of just him on his own.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the new manager wants to do, but there is obviously a familiarity there. I can't think of his name now off the top of my head, but he's obviously been promoted from within. But looking at the way the squad is right now, particularly when they're using the likes of Lewis Potter as a sort of makeshift left back, it does feel like it maybe lends itself to a kind of a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2 formation, and you could have potentially like Thiago and Shada as kind of split 9s, have Henderson, Yarmouk, and then Jensen as or Damsgaard as like your 10 with those two sitting. Have Lewis Potter bombing on the left, Coyote bombing on the right, and then you've got the likes of Collins, Van den Berg, Pinnock, Aya, who could form a 3. You know, it's not going to be sort of Hollywood football like it was at times last year, but I feel like 38 games of that, they probably don't get relegated.
Yeah, to be honest, I almost put it exactly like you've said. But in the end, I decided to go with the formation that we knew that they were playing last season. But I can definitely see Shada, and if Vissa stays or Thiago, like being the main 2 up front, and moving more back to what they used to play, which is like sort of 5 at the back. And Henry used to play left wing back, who may also come back into this team now that he's recovered from a season-long injury. And yeah, I definitely see a 3-5-2, 5-3-2 forming, given the players that we have on the table.
Okay, I think that will do for this little bit. We'll give you guys a rest before the next episode. We'll give Kiran a minute to change his t-shirt, and then we'll we'll act like it's been days and days since to sit down. And in the next episode, we'll be carrying up the alphabet. Now, you may notice that we are slightly skipping certain teams in the alphabet because we're planning on segregating the newly promoted teams into their own episode, which we'll do after all of these. So the next episode will be Brighton, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, and Everton. Make sure you give us a subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Give us a thumbs up if you like it as well. Do comment below anything that you disagree with, or anything that you think we didn't cover, or players that you think we've sort of overlooked in our chat, because we no doubt will have done. And also, if you're supporters of some of the clubs we're talking about, you will have certainly some stronger opinions than perhaps we do, which isn't always a good thing, as we'll find out in the next episode when Kiran chats about Chelsea. But yeah, we're always interested.
World champions, bro. World champions.
Yeah, did you put like a little star on the slide for Chelsea?
Yeah, any opportunity, yeah.
Give us a follow over on X at draft_FC. And of course, we're hoping by the time you're listening to this, the game has launched. Our website has sprung into action. The rankings are in there. Our predicted lineups are in there. All the stuff you might need for draft day is in there. So if that's something that you think is going to be of interest to you, then head over to draftfc.co.uk and see if you want to join us for the season. But yeah, until the next one, stay shook.
Stay shook.